do you heal from being in a relationship with a narcissist?
So as promised, we are going to talk about that. I think there's a lot of moving parts in it, and there's a lot of consequences and sort of things that come after the fact, after you finally get out, that are important to talk about.
Absolutely. So I think just to give a quick recap, being with somebody who's a narcissist means that you often got gaslit. You probably may feel like you're crazy or you can't trust your own reality. You probably felt like they were hot and cold with you. You probably felt like they love bombed you in the beginning and everything was awesome and perfect and great. And then all of a sudden they pulled back. I think a lot of the time they also made you feel like you're wrong or that you're the one that had to apologize all the time. So lots of different things that happened as a result of being with them. And most of it was really rooted in manipulating you, which is going to do a lot of damage to you,
Absolutely.
to your own mind, to your own mental health. And as a result, I think first and foremost, you got to realize you are with a narcissist. And then the next question is, how do you get out, right? Before you start healing, how do you get out?
Yeah, I think part of that process is that sort of awareness. We talked about this in our previous episode, but being able to identify the red flags first and foremost, and realizing that this is a cycle that you really don't want to be in. It's not healthy. It's not something that will really be able to last into something that is like a strong relationship, so being able to identify those red flags first and foremost is, I think, step one in my head.
Absolutely. Realizing that you are being manipulated, realizing that there isn't authenticity within the relationship, that you're really living in their world. This isn't an equal type of equality-based relationship. You're living in their world, and it can be very, very abusive, very toxic, very scary, very emotionally draining. I think it's just identifying the fact that you're not on the same playing field as well.
Right. And kind of relating to what you just said is like maybe identifying what it is doing to you. Like first identifying that it's there, then identifying what is this doing to me? How am I actually feeling in this situation? Am I overly anxious? Am I maybe more depressed than I normally am?
Can't trust myself.
Can't trust myself.
I'm crazy.
Right. Am I just second guessing myself all the time that maybe I didn't do that before, now I am? And what is it actually doing to me psychologically?
A lot of the time you're also really distant from your friends because you're
Isolation.
so focused on pleasing the narcissist. You're so focused on their needs and whatever they want that you kind of step away from your family, your connections, your network, because they may not deem that it's appropriate for you to hang out with them as much as you do, because they're going to eventually call out some of the BS that they force you to do or to deal with or to believe. So a lot of the time you really do draw away from your network, your support system. If you're questioning like, wow, I don't remember the last time I talked to my family or hung out with my friends, it's like, okay, boom, there's a red flag right there.
Yeah. Or every time I do, there's some kind of negative consequence that's coming from my partner.
That's true.
Right.
The other red flag is, am I overly concerned with their feelings to the point where I prioritize them and really my feelings take a step back? Are their feelings predominantly the valuable things that I'm always focusing on pleasing rather than taking care of myself? That basically they're the priority. That's also a red flag, to where your feelings generally don't even matter. You're so busy pleasing them.
Right. Which then sets you up for sort of that neglect towards yourself, right? It doesn't matter what you're feeling in the situation. It only matters that you're doing what you think is going to sort of help them feel better or help them in any kind of way.
Because if they're feeling better, then everything's okay. Everything's great.
Exactly.
Right. So did I get love bombed and now they're distant from me? So that hot and cold, right? Because most of the time people are going to be able to communicate to you, oh, here's what happened. I'm not really happy with this. Hey, can we fix something? But you see that hot and cold. They're either really happy and pleased with you, right? That kind of conditioning to, oh, you're doing what I want you to do, so I'm happy with you, versus you're not doing what I want. So I'm going to be pouty and I'm going to be mad, and you need to be concerned about how I feel. Right. So that hot and cold about their demeanor, really about the way that they behave, is also a huge red flag to notice.
Right. And kind of backtracking a little bit to the whole like isolation thing, part of that is they don't want you to have to be able to have the ability to vent about them, because then that sets them up in this negative light, right? And so they're going to do everything possible for you not to be able to have that opportunity.
Because that would be catastrophic for their image, for their identity, for how they present themselves, is you going and potentially reversing all of the work that they've done to manipulate their environment and the people in their environment, including you. Or your family, even, to where they think that they're the best thing ever that happened to you. So God forbid you go and tell your parents that you did something wrong that would change the way that they feel about your narcissistic partner.
Yeah. So now that you've identified that this is happening, you've identified how you're feeling in the situation.
And the toxic traits that you're experiencing.
Exactly. What do you do next? Because I feel like it's just so hard.
It's definitely
to get away.
Hard. Well, one, you love them. So it's really sucky because it's like, wow, I'm with somebody who may not love me in the same way, right? Because they truly love you for what you have to offer. So if you have nothing to offer them, they're not going to love you, whatever, or show you things that make you feel loved. Ultimately, they don't feel love in the same way, right? So it's really understanding like, wow, you love somebody who will never love you the same. Not equally, not on that vulnerable scale, not authentically. So it's really understanding, wow, my love is one-sided, or the love in this relationship is one-sided.
And do I want that? Like, am I going to be okay with that?
The answer should be no.
Yeah, exactly.
Because long term, it's not feasible. Not to mention, if you are then planning to start a family, now you're dealing with bringing in little children who are also going to be under the wrath and the rule of somebody who is a narcissist. I mean, not to say that they themselves, the narcissist, has not experienced trauma and they are the way that they are because they've probably been through some things that have created that. Generally it's a neglectful parent or, an overly suffocating parent. However, right now we're talking about what do you do when you're with that person? Yes, they should seek help and you should encourage they seek help. I mean, not that they'll listen to you, but
yeah, that's also true.
It's ultimately realizing, okay, this love is one-sided. I don't want that. I don't want to start a family with somebody who is going to behave this way towards me and towards the children that we may want to have together.
Or you've already started a family and you're realizing, oh my gosh, these are the effects on my kids, and do I want that for them?
Right, exactly. Yeah, which there is at any point in time, you can choose something different for your family. Not to say that it'll be easy.
Oh, yeah.
It won't. However, you got to protect yourself. You got to protect your family.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is maybe reaching out for whatever support that you can, whether that's, just resources in the community. If you don't feel like maybe feel like you've already sort of distanced yourself from your family members, it's personal to every situation, but resources are a big thing, right? Like gathering information, like planning for that exit.
Yes, definitely. Having an exit strategy. And I think if you are lucky enough to where you have not burned every bridge yet, it is definitely important to be honest. Tell the truth. Tell anybody. Talk to anybody. And actually tell them what's been happening. Tell them the truth. Have them validate you for a change and say, hey, I've been having these kind of arguments and I feel like it's always my fault. I feel crazy. What do you think? Because this is happening to me. What do you think? And
you've probably never done that before, right? Or
because
maybe
you're
you've done
too
that
scared of the repercussions
in the beginning, but you haven't in a long time because of the repercussions.
A narcissist does a lot of or spends a lot of time making sure that you realize that everything we talked about is between you and I. You can't go around telling people our business.
Yeah. And if you do, I don't trust you anymore. Or I'm
going to be cold, withhold love, withhold feelings from you.
Right, exactly. So you're right. Being able to share that with people in your life or with anybody, right? And just getting that feedback. Yes, to sort of validate, like, am I actually
You're not crazy
or am I not?
I mean, how often is somebody truly hallucinating and delusional? Most of the time, your experience is valid. It happened, and you deserve to be able to tell somebody, for them to be able to say, like, oh, wow. Oh my God,
that's not right.
That's not right.
That's
the
not
way
how
they're
it should
treating
be.
you isn't okay. And just that in itself is so freeing to be able to say, whoa, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah. And then sort of after those conversations, it kind of opens up the door for them to be like, listen, you got to do something different. Maybe help you out in some way, because I think a lot of it is you become so dependent on that person, right? Whether it's financially, emotionally, whatever,
Which is the MO of a narcissist.
Absolutely, because they want to strip you from any sort of independence for you not to be self-sufficient anymore, so that you are dependent and that you kind of have to just stay and deal with whatever it is that they're presenting to you. Right. And and of course, part of that is that isolation, because other people can help you and they don't want other people to help you. So maybe after having those conversations, it opens up the door for you to be able to receive at least some kind of help.
And to realize you no longer have to participate in their BS narrative. Yeah. You no longer have to say, I'm sorry all the time, even though it's not your fault. But they're not going to say sorry, but you don't want to have to deal with just them being pissed off at you all day. So you just get into the habit of saying, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's my fault. Oh, I shouldn't have said that to you. Now you're upset. Like, it
perpetuates it.
Stop being sorry for everything all the time. It's like, okay, I don't have to be a part of this anymore. I told somebody, they know. Yes. I don't feel stuck in having to keep playing this little role they got me playing. Like,
I feel validated that I'm not the one that is crazy, right?
I'm not to say that they're crazy. They're obviously dealing with something they gotta please seek professional help for.
Yeah, but I'm just using it as like them calling you crazy for everything that you ever question in their lives. You know what I mean?
For sure. I just want to make sure that we don't necessarily dehumanize somebody experiencing, mental health illness, because having narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health illness. It's something you have to work at every single day, and you might have to work at for the rest of your life, which sucks. Yes. However, if you're with somebody who is not in their healing journey, they're continuing to abuse you as a result of their mental illness, which is not okay. It's okay to have empathy. It's not okay to stay as a result of your empathy, because it is damaging you. It is stripping you of your own sanity, of your mental health. I mean, so many people who are within a narcissistic abusive relationship have depression and anxiety that is through the roof, because you're so confused and you're pretty much not sure of what reality is. And you're isolated. I mean, just so many different things layered on top of themselves, right? Which is not okay.
Right. So then, the question is, you said, stop apologizing for everything.
Yeah.
What do you do instead? That's been your pattern for, however long. What do you do instead?
Well, now that you know that you've reached out and you have support, because it's really scary to step out of that cycle when you don't know what to do thereafter.
Yep.
Because you don't know if you're going to be thrown out on the street or, I mean, depends on how long you've been in this relationship. The consequences could be pretty scary.
Right.
So once you've sought out resources, once you've sought out support, once you've talked to somebody and you're kind of gaining a little bit of momentum, realizing that the narcissist wants to be with you because you serve a purpose. I think identifying what that purpose is, right? Is it because you always take the fault so that they don't have to feel wrong, right? Whatever it is, you have to stop doing that. And if it's always apologizing so they can feel better about themselves, you need to disengage. That is your number one weapon with a narcissist. Is they're going to have a hard time leaving you if you serve a purpose. So you need to stop serving that purpose, which means disengage. Don't play along with what they want. Eventually that's gonna, elicit a reaction that is like, why aren't you doing for me what I need you to do? And hopefully they will lose interest and move on.
Yeah, I think the most important part of that is you got to have a plan before you do that. Like you said, are they going to throw you out? But the worst case scenario, what are they going to potentially, what they're going to do to you? Right. So if you're trying to elicit that sort of reaction of like, why aren't you doing what you usually do? And then that could cause consequences, whether that be emotional, physical, whatever. So being able to disengage, but also maybe have the ability to leave.
In some cases it could be devastating, right? The consequences. So hopefully you are not at that place and you are able to disengage without, any kind of physical abuse or, emotional abuse is at this point out the window because you've been getting emotionally abused. But, but being able to safely disengage, I think is a good point because in some cases it may be a little harder than others.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you finally started sort of disengaging. Maybe you have left already. What do you do then?
Well, I think even before leaving, right, disengaging is step one. It's not feeding into what they want. And ultimately, the main goal is for them to no longer be interested in you. Because if you're not serving a purpose, they will stop. Now, there's going to be many little micro steps in between, right? Because you want to make sure that not only are you disengaging, but you're not ever taking the bait because it's so hard not to take the bait because they know all your buttons. They know all the things that are important to you. They know how to rev you up. So within disengaging, it's also being able to not take the bait. And the way that you don't take the bait is when they're trying to tell you to take fault, I did this or I feel this way because you did this and that. You need to be able to stop them and say, can you please take a moment to listen to me? That disarms them because they have never heard that. All they know and all their main strategies are, we're not going to ever talk about what I did. I'm going to confuse the crap out of you. I'm going to dangle this over here and say, well, why are we talking about me coming home late?
Look at you.
When 3 years ago, you went to that party and never called me afterwards and I didn't say anything to you and you take the bait because that's the bait, right? That little piece is the bait.
Right.
And you go, oh my God, like, yes, 3 years ago, but I also told you la 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 la.
Right.
So now we're over here talking about me from 3 years ago instead of talking about you doing some shady ass stuff. Right. So don't take the bait.
Yeah.
You need to be able to stop that.
Yeah.
Do not take the bait. No matter if they know you feel guilty about it, so they're going to keep bringing it up. It's just too easy not to. So at that point, you don't take the bait and you say, you need to listen to me. Or we need to talk about this moment in time. And that is going to make the narcissist crazy.
What if they don't? What if they just say, no, we're going to talk about this. Like, I don't care what you say.
Generally, if you do that, they're going to walk away. Because their next strategy is not to actually talk about the problem. They're going to pull all of their weapons out of their arsenal, right? So their next step is fudge. You're not taking the bait. My next step is to emotionally manipulate you in a different way, right? And that is, I'm going to walk away because I know most likely if you're with a narcissist, you have a need for that love that they can offer, right? I mean, it takes two to tango.
Right.
So you're going to automatically be like, oh my God, they're walking away. They're mad. I don't want them to be mad. And you're going to run after them. Nope. Guess what? If they say, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm just going to go.
I'm not dealing with this right now.
Bye.
Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, what are you going to do now? I'm not running after you and begging you for forgiveness and saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead. You want to go? Bye. What are you going to do now?
Yeah.
You are disarming them one step after another because you need to familiarize yourself with what their weapons are. And kind of across the board, they're pretty similar. And if you know that they're expecting you to follow and you don't, that is alarming them. And that's letting them know like, oh shit, I may not have control over this person anymore. I have to find a way out, or I'm going to find someone else who is willing to participate in this cycle that I have to live through over and over and over again.
Part of that though could be like, let's say they walk away and you're like, all right, bye, see you later. And then they realize, oh man, I can't control them. Sometimes it reverts back to that love bombing. Maybe they can come back and say, you know what? I am sorry.
And they often do, you're right.
Exactly. I am sorry. I did this. I'm so sorry, and then they start love bombing you. And then that's when it all starts. But part of that, again, is that disengagement.
Yes,
you can't let it affect you in the same way that it used to.
That love bombing is the bait again.
Exactly.
It's all baiting.
It's the bait. Exactly.
You have to be able to say, oh no, that's okay. Thank you though. Oh, you want to take me to dinner because you feel bad about what happened last night? That's okay. Thank you. I've had dinner already.
Right. Exactly.
Thanks.
Oh, you want to give me, gifts and whatever else? No, you know what? I'm not interested. I'll donate this.
Right.
You know, whatever.
And of course,
maybe.
it's not
Yeah.
easy, right?
I know
because
it's
you do
not.
love them.
Of course.
But if you're ready to leave, these are the steps you have to take.
Right. Yeah. And again, like you said earlier, it's not easy. It's not easy. You will be going against everything that you've believed in or felt, right? But if you're truly ready, you have to be firm.
Because you deserve to be loved authentically and genuinely with somebody who respects and cares about your feelings, not just how you make them feel. It's not fair. It's not wholesome. It's not going to last. You're going to be on a roller coaster for the rest of your life. And after a certain point, you're like, dude, I want to throw up.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't deal with this anymore.
Right. And that's the point where you have to really decide and go, okay, I'm not going to take the bait. And you're right. That's the hardest part, right? Is when you're trying to pull away, they're going to amp it up. Either they'll get disinterested and move on.
Yeah.
Or they're going to amp it up and they're going to bring it back to that love bombing to say, you know, I love you. Oh, I'm so sorry. And that's when you have to be the strongest. That's when you have to rely on your support system the most to be able to resist that. Because guess what happens after the love bombing? The manipulation again.
Absolutely.
And the love bombing is the manipulation also. I mean,
Right.
it's really intense and really frustrating, but you have to stick to your guns in this one. And you have to say, I don't want to participate in your adventures any longer.
Right. Right. And eventually, you know, maybe you go through these cycles a little bit over and over again, but eventually you're going to come to a point of like realizing, okay, I can no longer deal with this and I need to be firm and I need to be able to eventually just go no contact.
That is non-negotiable.
Yes.
Because any inch you give, they will take a mile.
Yes. So you have to eventually, that is your end goal. There cannot be this whole, well,
Let's be
maybe we can be
friends.
friends. Oh, you know,
No, you can't.
No, we can't be friends. We can't be friends. Nope. We can't even see each other. Like, no,
if you're at a party,
nothing.
I'm not going.
I am leaving. And if I see you there, I am leaving. Like it cannot be this whole, oh, we can be in the same room and no.
That's the hard part, right? If you have the same social circles.
That is hard.
However, you can find a way around that. Let's say you know that they always show up late, right? Because there's no way they're going to show up to a party not dressed to the nines, not looking amazing, right? You know they're going to be late. So maybe you show up early and maybe you stay for an hour and then you bounce because you know they're going to be coming. Or vice versa, okay? Let's say they are somebody who truly values being on time all the time, right? Because I mean, everybody's different. They value different things, even narcissists, right? So like if they're really about timeliness, then you know they're going to be there on time. But you know they're going to leave before they have too many drinks because they don't want people to see them drunk. So maybe you show up 3 hours later, 2 hours later, or whatever, and hang out with your friends. So you have to be able to navigate your world without them. Period. If you go to the same health club, fitness club, stop going there, find a new one. Sorry, you have to drive 10 minutes longer. Too bad.
Right. Don't try to convince yourself, I can do this.
Nope.
I can just ignore them. It'll be fine. Because they are not going to just let you go like that.
Right.
They're just
Especially
not.
if you are truly serving a purpose for them that they need. You know, I mean, it could be very possible that they rely on you financially and now all of a sudden you're like, dude, I don't want to be with this person anymore. You think they're going to let you go so easy when you are essentially providing for them? Definitely not.
Exactly. So they're going to try to lure you in and you have to be able to be strong and say no. And part of that is like, you know, you were using examples of like figuring out how you can still be friends with the same people. Sometimes it's not possible. And that's just, it's a very negative consequence, but it is a reality sometimes.
What's more important? Your safety.
Exactly.
That is the most important. Your sanity, your safety, your well-being. I mean, how long can you suffer at the hands of somebody who's truly trying to use and abuse you?
Right. And especially like going back to the fact that you've probably maybe shared some of these things with your friend group already, right? Like, this is what's happening to me. This is what I'm going through. And if they can't also help you sort of feel strong and confident and maybe hang out with you at different times or whatever, right? If they can't really do that, then if they're like, no, we're just going to all hang out and doesn't matter, then they're not respecting you.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
But you have to do what's best for you. And leaving a toxic, abusive relationship with somebody who does not value you, see you as equal, or care about your feelings is the priority. Sorry, it's just unfortunate, but that's the only way out. There's no middle ground. And to kind of double down, no contact is almost inevitable in leaving a narcissistic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just to have a little tidbit, if you do have kids with somebody, that could be a little hard.
Facts.
Right. So I guess how do you deal with that? Because I think a lot of people have been within these relationships for quite some time and have probably started families and things like that. So just, to sort of end on that note, how do you deal with it when you do have kids? Because you probably will not be able to have no contact with this person.
Boundaries. Yes. Did I say boundaries?
Yes.
Boundaries.
But boundaries.
but boundaries. So they have to be, oh my God, the most solid, immovable things, because a narcissist will try to get their way. And that is to try to somehow manipulate you to make adjustments. You have to set the strongest boundaries. And luckily in this day and age, we are so lucky, because there are so many different apps that you can use to communicate. Because if you even give them, like we said, an inch of let's do text, no, don't text this person, because that gives them access to you and you don't want that, right? Obviously your children should have the right to spend with their parent, and
as long as it's safe.
As long as it's safe. And a lot of the time they won't act that way with their kids, or they'll be truly the best parent, right? Because they're truly projecting that, image. And fine. Let your kids have the benefit of whatever, that is. And they should have the right to their parent, to access their parent. However, they do not have the right to access your emotions. They do not have the right to access your feelings and manipulate you. There's things like, I think it's called the Family Wizard, where it's an app that you can use. A lot of people use after court. Because there's some kind of issues, right? There's been abuse, or there's some type of manipulation, or whatever the case is, or it was a really toxic breakup or a toxic divorce. There are apps, there are methods that you can communicate that records everything. So if they want to talk to you, this is the only way to reach you. I will not text you back. If you call me, I will not answer. You will only use this app, and that is my boundary.
Yeah.
If you need to say something to me, you will say it here, because guess what? Then I can take this app and take you back to court and say, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Those boundaries need to be clear and need to be followed on your end, because they might not, but you need to be
But that's not your problem.
Consistent with it.
Right? This is what I've said. This is what you're going to use. If you don't like it, that's unfortunate, but you will not have access to me in any other way. Right now, if we're talking about having little itty bitty kids, it's a little different, right? You may end up kind of easing up on your own boundaries because you're worried about your child. And that's, circumstantial. I would really encourage seeking out support in terms of a mediator or being able to have therapy to where you can figure out how you can set boundaries that aren't that strict. It also gets a lot easier when you have teenage kids, because they have their own phones, and therefore you can rely on them to do the communicating with you. If they feel unsafe or they want to come home, they can text you. You don't need to have contact with their parent to find out that they're feeling unsafe or anything like that. So it's really important to also seek additional professional support, therapists, counselors, family therapists, even group mediators, right? Any type of additional support is going to help you really buff out some of those gray areas, because I'm sure that case by case, there's going to be things you need to work out. And obviously this one podcast episode isn't going to give you the keys to all of those. But it's really important to start thinking about, like, how do I protect myself? And ultimately, your kids are watching, okay? If we're talking about the kids piece, your kid is watching how you are protecting yourself. Are you letting somebody take advantage of you? Are you taking the bait? Or are you setting strong, hard, healthy boundaries with somebody that you don't have to fight and yell at each other. You can just say, me and your dad, me and your mom don't get along, and just so that everything is okay and so that we can take the best care of you, this is how we're going to do it, because we can't seem to find a common ground or a common language, or we just have a really hard time communicating, and that's okay. But this is what we're going to do, and this is, I'm not going to make any adjustments or move in any way from this because this is what helps me keep safe and helps me keep you safe.
Right, exactly. And part of that is the other parent, the narcissistic parent, might set the kid against you, but you still, even though it's gonna hurt, even though you're gonna feel sorry for the kid or whatever, you still have to keep those boundaries because eventually the kid will understand.
Right.
It just might
your
take
kids
time.
will grow up and see what the truth is.
It just might take time.